Welcome back, Math 10-3. Today's lesson is a little special type of lesson. We're basically combining trigonometry, all of them together. Except there's a difference. We're no longer using sine and cosine and tangent as a ratio, so as a fraction. It's more about going backward type. How can I calculate angle? So here's the thing. For example, if I have sine angle that is equal to opposite over hypotenuse. Previous example types deal with, for example, angle is given. And either opposite or hypotenuse, one of them are given. So I need to find out which one of the missing one is gonna be quantified as whatever blah 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 meter, feet, something like that. But in this time it's opposite. We do not know the angle, but we have these two lengths are given. Then how can we go from opposite and hypotenuse ratio back to an angle? So those are something that you need to understand. Before we getting into our actual calculation, one thing that I want to point out is we're still using the same jingle. So Toa. We are using the same thing. SOHCAHTOA. Sine is still opposite over hypotenuse. Cosine is still adjacent over hypotenuse. Tangent is opposite over adjacent. This doesn't change. But the only thing change, and in order to explain that, I'm going to take out my personal calculator. It is graphing calculator, but you have scientific calculator, which basically work as the same way. I want you to look at this sine, cosine, tangent button. These are what we have been using. We used basically sine and put whatever 75 angle, something like that. Can you see the yellow word that says sine and to the power of -1? Same thing for cosine to -1. Same for tangent -1. We are using these second function sine, cosine, and tangent. So my model, once I turn things on, I can say second function button and then sine. You have this special word that says sine to the power of -1. We are using these. Those are what I like to call basically those are the functions that we have to use to find out the ratio. So when we find angle for sine, make sure it's sine to the power of -1 for cosine, cosine to the power of -1, tangent to the power of -1. We are using these to find angle. Now, talking about angle, there are two different types of angle. And I am going to explain to you using simple right angle triangle. The first one is drawn a little bit poor. Second one actually is way better. If you try to find the angle, first case, second case, as you may notice, this angle starts from horizontal and it's going down to create this reference angle, right? We call the number one angle situation as angle of depression. When you hear the word depression, that's a psychological mental disorder that bring yourself down. It's opposite of happiness at one point. Similar thing, the word depress as a verb, that's like something is pushing down. So to create this angle, you have to start horizontal and you're pushing it down to create that arc. Think about that way. On the other hand, when it comes to this situation, it's opposite. You're starting horizontal line. In order to make that angle, you are pushing things up. So you may start from this horizontal line, but look at this arch. Arch will go up. we call this type of angle as angle of elevation. Like the word elevator. Elevator's function is, yes, it make you travel from second floor to first floor, but you can use stair too. The reason elevator was invented as, or lift in British, you need to understand that those are invented so that whoever's located underground, first floor, try to go somewhere above than you and have a least of your own personal work and spend less of your energy. That's where those happen. So elevator bring you up, something like that, angle of elevation. There are two different types. Without further ado, here's what I'm going to do. It's really case by case, so I'm going to do an example on page 230, as you may see over here. And I'm going to solve a question about this. In order to understand this, I'm going to draw some diagram. Generally, I just straightly draw the right angle triangle, but please understand that. There you go. All right. A cable is secured at the top of the cliff to create a zip line. What angle does a zip line make with the ground? And what is the angle of depression from the top of the cliff? So here are two questions. First question is talking about the angle from the ground level all the way to cable for the connecting line. That angle of elevation is what the first question is asking. And second question is, what is the angle of depression? And that uses y. So how can I solve this question? First thing first, I'm gonna just copy this right angle triangle again, just as a triangle perspective now. Find out what clue that is given. This is my reference angle. Right now, 15 meters given. That is my opposite because it's directly faced against the angle that is given on the left side. And we have 39 meter, which is the longest side. That's our hypotenuse. So here's the thing. We have opposite that is given and hypotenuse that is given. Now, let's go all the way from the top to the top. Which one involve opposite and hypotenuse together? So, SOH, sine formula involve both of the given one. It's not a good idea to use cosine because adjacent we don't know, and same reason for tangent. So O and H is what we need to do. So here's what I'm going to put. First of all, substitute everything. Sine theta. I know we are trying to find what's inside, but bear with me. Is equivalent to opposite, which is 15 over hypotenuse 39. This is where you need to start. Original formula that we learned before. Second thing, do you guys remember that in order to find out my angle, I specifically say sine to the power of -1 is what we need to use, right? I didn't say which one go inside of these three brackets. Now I'm gonna tell you. What goes in is basically this ratio. Opposite over hypotenuse is the one that goes inside. 15 over 39. That will give me my reference angle. So let's punch these numbers in. Second function, sine. 15 over 39 bracket close. As you may notice, can you see 22.62 degree? It is my angle. 22.62 degree. That is what you need to do. That is angle of elevation. Now the question is asking angle of depression over here. It does involve geometry a little bit. I want you to draw the parallel line that go like this. Can you see that if I look at it, this crossing line create an angle from my bottom parallel line to the hypotenuse angle over here. Same thing happened for this horizontal upper one and the angle that is created for the diagonal. I want you to understand that these two angles are always equal together. So my angle of depression, elevation and depression, are in this case equal together. So 22.62 degree, that is also the answer for the second question. That is what we can do whenever we face any type of sine, cosine, tangent situation. Although the question, there's no question on the textbook or workbook, sorry, but I'm going to go through another example. This time I'm gonna make things improv way. Oh, sorry, angle should not be given. So the question is asking, find out the angle of depression if we know 16 meter and 15 meter length and width. First step is, in this case, as you may know, angle of depression is over here, but can you see that it's kind of like outside of this right angle triangle? Then what you can do is make this as a reference angle for now. Then we will know that 15 is completely opposite side, so OPP. 16 meters next to the theta and 90, so that's my adjacent. So I have opposite and adjacent. Now what we need to do is we're using any of a trigonometry that involve adjacent and opposite. The answer is TOA, we need to use tangent. So first thing first, tangent of an angle that is equal to opposite 15 over adjacent 16. But as you may notice, this is a question that is involved to find out the angle. So second function of tangent, then put that opposite over adjacent inside. Then you're gonna have second function tangent 15 over 16 is equivalent to about 43.15 degree. Is that my final answer? Unfortunately not, because that is an angle over here. We are trying to find the colored angle, angle of depression over here. So how can we find from each other? Always remember that if horizontal line, vertical line create, that's perpendicular. So my final answer, angle of depression, is basically 90 degree minus my answer that I got, 43.15 degree. Then you will have your final answer as 46.85 degree. That is today's lesson.